Hello there! I thought today would be an excellent day to make some fall coffee drinks. It is cold and bright outside. I am wearing a sweater for what feels like the first time in a very long time, and there is, ominously, a pumpkin staring at me from across the studio. It just feels right. However, this year, I thought we would do something a little bit different. Before we dive into our fall coffee drinks to make at home, I kind of figured we should do a little field research on what is currently out there. So, if you're up for it, let's start with a field trip. I suppose I do need a jacket. Okay, now let's go. Okay, we have 4 drinks today. This is very exciting. Let's start with pumpkin spice. Now the barista asked if I wanted They asked if I wanted whipped cream and I panicked and I said yes, but I didn't actually want it and they didn't actually give it to me. So this has all worked out wonderfully. This, weirdly enough, really reads to me as a cereal milk latte. It's got that like kind of weedy, like cinnamon toast crunch thing going on. Not nearly as much like baking spice and kind of like pumpkin-y flavor as I would expect. I think they are actually using pumpkin in their pumpkin spice now. All in all, decently pleasant. It's pretty sweet, but that's kind of to be expected. I don't know, I could definitely drink more of this, but I don't know if I would necessarily identify it as a pumpkin spice latte. This is our apple crisp oat milk shaken espresso. We always have to do the thing with these, don't we? I don't know if I like this one very much. Even though there's a lot of apple on the nose, I don't really taste it in the drink itself. Really what I think I'm tasting is just like a lot of malic acidity that I'm naturally associating with apple, but it's just kind of like cloyingly sweet and not really well-rounded. But actually, maybe this is kind of good because I already have some ideas on how we can adjust this. Let us dive into pecan land. We now have the pecan crunch oat latte. This one is delightfully nutty on the nose. Frankly, I got into the car and within like 30 seconds, the entire car smelled like candied nuts. Got like a little bit of like crunchies, it looks like on the top, like a crunchy sugar that's already starting to like dissolve into the drink. Cheers. I kind of like this one. I've never really been one for hazelnut lattes. I feel like that is typically the most common like nut syrup, for lack of a better word. But this is shockingly pleasant. I'm not getting much crunch on this. I know their pecan crunch like topping is just like a flavored sugar, so it's dissolving pretty quickly into the drink itself. So that is something we will consider when we make our own version. Okay, and then our final little buddy here, we have a pecan oat cortado. Starbucks does these as an 8 ounce. Typically in most cafes, you'll see this as a 4 ounce, but this is as small as we can go here. So let's have at it. I'm biased towards preferring smaller drinks with a higher percentage of espresso in them. So off the bat, I do like this one more. It's still about the same level of sweetness. I'm not really getting any of the crunch and I do want to explore that. So for now, I'm gonna just say that this is a really good starting point. I have some ideas. Let's go get ingredients.
I want to give a huge thank you to Trade for sponsoring today's video. Fall is most definitely in full swing, but that doesn't mean you have to let go of your cold coffee or your hot coffee. Frankly, I'm an all temperature, all around person, and if you are too, then Trade is the perfect place for you. Trade Coffee is a coffee subscription service and the #1 destination in the US for both hot and cold coffee drinkers. Trade has partnered with over 50 of the top roasters in the US to source excellent coffee no matter what you prefer. Blend or single origin, light or dark, hot extraction or cold extraction, they've got something for you. All you need to do is select the delivery cadence that works best for you and your coffee will be sent freshly roasted to your front door. They also have easy to use curated gear so you can try out new brewing methods and expand your coffee bar. However, for a limited time, Trade is giving you all 50% off a 1-month trial at drinktrade.com/MDC. That's 50% off a 1-month trial at the top link in the description. Thank you again to Trade for sponsoring today's video. Alright, now that we've got everything, let's start by making a new version of that apple crisp shaken espresso that actually tastes like apples. For this, we're going to start with an apple syrup that uses 200 grams of brown sugar and 100 grams of apple cider, although you can substitute this for regular apple juice if you'd like. For our spices, we're going to need 2 cinnamon sticks, 3 whole star anise, and 10 whole cloves. Lastly, for a little extra complimentary flavor, a large sprig of fresh rosemary. This is a pretty simple syrup. No pun intended, because this is in fact a rich syrup. We're going to add everything into a saucepan on medium heat, stirring it until the sugar is fully incorporated and then bringing it to a low simmer. Let it simmer for 5 minutes, stirring regularly and enjoying the free smells, and then remove it from heat. You can let it cool slightly and then strain out the spices and herbs using a fine sieve. This syrup and all the ones we're making today can be bottled and stored in the fridge for 2 weeks. But in the meantime, let's make our full drink. Into a shaker goes 3/4 ounces of syrup and a double shot of freshly pulled espresso. Give that all a vigorous shake with ice and then strain over a fresh mountain of ice in a glass. Finally, top it with approximately 2 ounces of barista oat milk. And if you're feeling a little bit fancy, which I usually am, you can add a sprig of freshly smoked rosemary using a kitchen torch. It is definitely apple, lightly spiced, and refreshingly fall. But speaking of fall, let's tackle the most infamous of our drinks today. Pumpkin spice is a flavor that needs little introduction, and I'm of the belief that it should indeed have pumpkin in it, although I'm aware that is a slightly controversial statement. Once more, we're going to use 200 grams of brown sugar as our base, along with 100 grams of water. For our pumpkin element, we'll be using 50 grams of unsweetened pumpkin puree. Now, let's go through our complementary and spiced flavors. We'll need 15 grams of peeled and roughly chopped ginger root, 3 cinnamon sticks, 12 whole cloves, 2 grams of sea salt, and 4 grams of vanilla bean paste. With these classic seasonal drinks, I like to keep their builds pretty straightforward, so everything except the sea salt and vanilla gets chucked into a saucepan on medium heat. Once more, bring it to a simmer and let it simmer for at least 5 minutes. You can let it go for 10 minutes for a stronger flavor, but make sure to keep it at a low simmer. And, of course, don't forget to take in the free smells. This is required of every syrup you are making today. Now, we want a smooth syrup consistency to bottle and pour, so once the syrup has cooled slightly and it's off the heat, you can pour it through a cheesecloth or a fine sieve. You may have to filter it twice, though, if you're just using the sieve. This process may take a few minutes, but by the end, you'll have a smooth spice and pumpkin syrup. At this point, you can add the sea salt and vanilla and then stir to combine. The latte itself is pretty standard. I'm using 3/4 ounces of syrup, although you should always adjust to your own preference. A double shot of espresso, and approximately 5 ounces of steamed milk of your choice, although I think oat or whole are probably the best choices here. You can use cinnamon on top if you like, but I'm always partial to freshly grated nutmeg. And there you have it, a deliciously pumpkin-y pumpkin spice latte for all of your seasonal needs. Alright, on to our final drink. I'm not sure how the green place makes their pecan syrup, but I'm going to make a pecan orgeat for mine. This is definitely the most complex of our fall syrups today, but it's delicious, and if you're a cocktail person, this will be an extra useful ingredient. Starting off, we need 100 grams of pecans that have been soaked in hot water for an hour. We'll also need 180 grams of sugar, 2 grams of sea salt, and 4 grams of vanilla bean paste. For our orgeat to stay nice and homogeneous, we'll also need to be using 0.5 grams of gum arabic and 0.1 grams of xanthan gum. Both of these are useful stabilizers, and they will help this recipe's consistency quite a lot. So, to begin, rinse the soaked almonds and add them to a blender along with 180 grams of water straight off of a boil. Blend that for a minute until the nuts are completely pulverized and then strain it through a nut bag. This is going to give us our pecan milk. Rinse the blender clean and then add the pecan milk along with the sugar, sea salt, vanilla, and both stabilizing powders. Blend it all again for another minute until it's smooth, and there you have it. A pecan orgeat that we can now mix into whatever we want. While that cools, I'm also going to blitz some candied pecans in a spice grinder to make a little imitation pecan crunch topping that actually has some crunch. We're going to be doing the cortado ratio here, so I'm using half an ounce of our pecan orgeat, a double shot of espresso, and 2 ounces of steamed milk. Give it a good sprinkle of caramelized pecan dust and sip away. And with that, these are my 3 versions of this year's fall seasonals. And I have to say, I am pretty pleased with myself and how these turned out, but they are now for you to make and then sip and enjoy.